Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video, and today I'm doing a review of the Doctor Who comic, 13th Doctor slash sort of 10th Doctor I suppose now. We'll get on to that in a bit. Issue 1 of this new sort of series, I guess, or little mini-series maybe, potentially, I don't know. But yeah, you've got the 13th Doctor and the 10th Doctor and the Sea Devils over there and that, and it's kind of cool that we've got their weapon on the back there. And on the back you've just got quotes from like different outlets saying, ranting and raving about how amazing the Doctor Who comics are. You've got an advert for the Doctor Who Time Lord Victorious graphic novel sort of thing, which basically just puts issue 1 and 2 together, which if I'd have known in retrospect that issue 1 and 2 were just 1 and 2 issues of the Time Lord Victorious comic, Defender of the Daleks, I would have just got the graphic novel-y thing instead of getting the single issues, honestly, but I didn't know that. So yeah, I mean, that's an option for anyone curious about those. You've got advertisements for a bunch of other 13th Doctor stuff. Comics, Doctor Who comic stuff as well. You've got what happened previously, a bio on the 10th Doctor. I meant to say 13th there. 13th, 10th. And then down here you've got Rose, Ryan, Yaz, Graham, and the TARDIS. Bios on them. And then underneath that you've got the Titan Comics website, Twitter and Facebook. Here on this side you've got the writer, artist, colorist and other folk who worked on this comic and or issue. And then yeah, what do I think of this? It's an interesting one, really. I like Rose. Rose is pretty cool. I like Rose, how she's drawn and that, and wearing those sort of goggles kind of makes her look more like the 13th Doctor, really, I suppose, or having the sort of steampunky thing. Kind of weird having a shot and a panel even of like a gun sort of thing. I don't feel like we get a lot of action sort of stuff in the Doctor Who sort of comics, or we do, but not a lot, like not as much comparatively to other comics. But then again, compared to actual Doctor Who, I guess there is more in this potentially. I mean, that guy's just got shot, which would happen maybe off screen in actual Doctor Who, or be less visually sort of visceral, I suppose. I dig some of the artwork. Some of the artwork is good, some of it is a bit iffy. And that for me, I like certain things, like for example this, having almost like the bubbles in the background behind the boxes slash panels, or like having certain panel slash bits be sort of visualized differently, makes it a bit more unique with what they're going for. I like the design and overall look of the Sea Devils in this story. They look kind of cool and imposing, and that. Spoilers for this comic. If you want to read this spoiler free, don't watch this review, and that is what I will say. But yeah, Jackie and Pete are introduced in this, and spoiler alert, but the cliffhanger for issue 1 is the 10th Doctor arriving, which honestly at this point just feels a bit meh, a bit like a flat, boring, really uninspired cliffhanger, because he's on the front cover, for Christ's sake. And also, like, yeah, that's one of my major criticisms of the 13th Doctor sort of comic range. For me personally as a fan, I really just want the 13th Doctor. I guess I'm going to go on a limb and say that they've stopped doing the 10th Doctor stuff, but if they have, then I don't think just putting the fan favourite Doctor in with the current Doctor is great, because then it just devalues and sort of overshadows Jodie and or the 13th Doctor. Even in a comic, you know, she's kind of getting shafted in her own comic, really. She should be the priority because she's the incumbent Doctor, in my opinion. And I think as well, if that's the case, if they're so like, sort of like, hey, the 10th Doctor's the fan favourite and he's the moneymaker, as it were, let's say he sells comics, why not just continue the 10th Doctor ones and then do these ones separate with just the 13th Doctor, and then occasionally have them both pop in and out of each other's respective comic book range and or sort of series of comics, as opposed to just having Jodie comics and or 13th Doctor comics, and then just having like the 13th Doctor be shafted and sidelined in her own series. It's a little bit annoying, a bit frustrating, you know. Yaz, I feel like Yaz on a sort of less sort of note kind of looks different from on the TV show. Maybe it's just what she's wearing and how she is drawn, maybe, I don't know. Graham and Ryan look fine the way they are. And another thing, on another similar tangent to what I just mentioned about 13, now with the most recent episode of Doctor Who aired, with Graham and Ryan leaving, does that then mean for future 13th Doctor comics, would we see John Bishop's character in whatever his name is? I can't remember his name. But John Bishop's character in the comics, would we not? Would we have different companions? Would we just have Yaz and 13 and set them between sort of series 12 and 13 in that timeline? Or would we still have Yaz, Graham and Ryan and 13 and set them still around the time of sort of series 11 and 12 and between those series? Because honestly, I think having Ryan, Yaz, Graham and Yaz and then 13, I think would be really good in the comics for a bit more time, because I think if you've enjoyed this particular TARDIS team, or the fam as she always refers to them as, I think only having 22 episodes, I think it is, with them, I think is quite a short amount of episodes, and so I think the least the comics could do is sort of bolster that for fans of that era, you know. If there are any real diehard fans of that era, then I think the least the comics could do is, as I say, sort of bolster that and sort of reinforce that sort of era, you know. If you watch, like, you know, I don't know, the Witchfinders, and then, you know, go into your local comic book shop, and then to see 13th Doctor comic, and then have that sort of familiarity of, all these characters are the same, as opposed to a new one having, you know, only her and Yaz, or as I say, just her, Yaz, and two new comic exclusive sort of characters, would be a bit of a shame, I think. But I like the fact that they've sometimes added sort of Gallifreyan text and swirls and stuff in certain places. And the sort of thing of, like, when she's explaining things, there are the visuals of, like, you know, the Earth and stuff. I actually quite like the 13th Doctor TARDIS in the comics. I'm not so keen on it. Weirdly enough, it looks better in the comics somehow, sometimes, to me at least, than in the actual show, which is really weird to say. I like that. You know, as I say, I like the Sea Devil design. Pete and Jackie are in this sort of story. I don't know about that. At first I was kind of happy about that, but then reading into issue 2, maybe not so much, but I don't know. But yeah, I think this is a sort of solid, okay sort of first issue, and that for the comic, for this sort of story they're wanting to tell. It's an alright start, and that I assume this is sort of set after the sort of Weeping Angel event / Auton event sort of thing that happened in that comic series, and sort of set maybe between that and that Time Lord Victorious stuff that I have reviewed on the channel before. So yeah, Thanks for watching. Please do comment, rate, and subscribe.